Okay, so hi, this is William Hyde, the chair of the Republican Liberty Caucus of Hillsborough County. We are conducting an interview with Billy Christensen for Supervisor of Election in Hillsborough County. And we have a little bit of a mic situation where I just wanted to say hi with this mic and then I'm going to switch. So we're going to pause for just a second and I'm going to switch.
Okay, the first part of the interview, we are going to just ask for intros here. So, Billy, could you introduce yourself and explain why it is that you want to run for this office?
Certainly, and thanks guys for having us. My name is Billy Christensen. I'm running for Supervisor of Elections. I'm a husband, father, and veteran. I spent 9 years in active duty in the Air Force and in the intelligence field, and then another 9 years in the government service at U.S. Central Command. And after the 2020 elections, I think we all kind of know something's going on, and the right kind of people need to start getting involved. And me and a group of guys are stepping forward. So that's kind of where we are today.
So we are doing the interview based on a survey that was put together by Chris Ann Hall, who is a constitutional lawyer that's in the Hillsborough County area. And the first question on the survey is, do you have political consultants? And if so, who are they?
Sorry, thank you. No political consultants. I just have a team of professionals that date back from my government career.
Cool. And so those professionals that you're referring to, could you talk about them a little bit and why it is that you're working with them?
They are like-minded individuals that I am familiar with, similar to Mr. John Totten, who's here today. I've worked with them in many cases for dozens of years, and you know, we understand each other. We understand why we're involved. It's a team effort, and then, like I said, most importantly is they're trusted and they have the same ambitions and desires for the future of our country.
Very cool. And we'll get to what those ambitions and desires are very soon. Another question is, like over the last maybe like 2 or 3 places that you've lived, what city and state were they?
I've been in Tampa since 2007. There was a break where I spent a year over in the UK in 2010. And prior to that, I was stationed at Hurlburt Airfield, and that's in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, assigned to Air Force Special Operations Command. And then prior to that, I was stationed overseas. That was just before before 9/11. I went to AFSOC after 9/11, or yeah, just before 9/11 actually. And then before I joined the military, I grew up in Kansas, just outside of Wichita, Kansas.
Wow, so the Midwest. A bit of a cultural change and stuff moving to Florida.
I mean, I was active duty military. My entire family were all active duty military, so it's moving around and adjusting. You know, it's part of the way of life, if you will, for those folks.
Cool. The next question is, if you were elected to office, who do you work for?
When I'm elected, I work for the people of Hillsborough County, the voters. I'm running for Supervisor of Elections, and it should be the most transparent process in all of our government. And unfortunately, it seems that in many of the counties, it's not. So my job, and I'm already working for the people. I went to an LNA test on 15 February, a logics and assessment test that is required to do by SOEs in the lead up to the presidential primary race. And that test is to reassure to the people that the process is secure. And John and I actually went to the test just to be informed and kind of get a lay of the groundwork of the ground. And we were shocked to discover not one, but multiple serious security violations, to include unattended thumb drives, which we found out yesterday were the thumb drives that are used to transfer the data from the tabulators to the computer so they can print the results. Anybody in the room could have snagged those up and left. We also found unattended or uncovered Wi-Fi data to literally every modem on every tabulator that they were using in the exercise. So we've already begun our process of working for the people. There is a serious issue in our SOE office in getting information out. And even without being elected, I think we're starting to scratch the surface on some of the information that the people haven't seen. And I haven't even touched the fact that 58,000 people had their personal information stolen from his office last year. And we can assume now safely that it was probably done over a thumb drive. So,
Wow.
yeah, when I say we're already working for the people, we are already working for the people in ways they don't even really appreciate, because nobody's looking into the SOEs. And it's become, I don't know, it's become, well, the narrative is if you question elections, you become an election denier. And we're not questioning elections. I'm definitely questioning the security of the process, because I've physically seen it with my own eyes, major security violations that in the world that I come from would be an immediate firing of whomever is responsible, and probably their supervisor or their commander. So that's the just a perspective of how egregious some of these actions are in the SOE office, and why almost anyone is better than what we have right now.
Cool. Well, I mean, not cool, but cool that you shared that with us. The next question is, do you hold any loyalty, bond, or affection toward any foreign country or territory?
I do not. I'm American all the way.
Cool.
Had a
Question after
top
that.
secret clearance. I think it's important to know. I've had a top secret clearance since the day I turned 18. I joined the Air Force when I turned 18. So I will not the day, but from the age of 18, I've held the top secret clearance. And if anybody that has a clearance in our government understands what that means and the level of background checks that they do on you. And from the age of 18 up until about 36, I was under the government thumb, if you will, being monitored very heavily, because I've been involved in almost everything that you've seen on the news since 2001. I've been at the forefront with my finger on it. So it's, my loyalties are unquestioned, and they have been for forever, and going forward, there's continued to be unquestioned.
Cool. Have you ever been discharged or asked to resign from a job?
No, I have not.
Have you ever been convicted or pled guilty to a felony or crime?
I have not.
And then the next question is, describe what guides your moral compass.
God.
Can you be more specific? Because there's lots of theories about God.
Everything, well, God is at the center of everything me and my family do. That's the first, I mean, that's the first paradigm, or the first filter we view anything through. Then it's our family, and then it's this country. And like I said, I joined the Air Force prior to 9/11 when I was 18 years old. 9/11 happened when I was 2001. I was on the very first airplane over after 9/11 into Uzbekistan and then into Afghanistan. They made movies about what we did. There is absolutely no questioning our loyalty and our intent in this mission.
Cool. Yeah. So regarding the just to kind of further understand the moral compass and everything, like you said, there's many different theories about who God is, and many different religions that talk about God. So could you kind of further specify, like, are you referring to like a text like the Bible, or like what are you specifically referring to there?
Of course, the Bible. I'm a Christian. Our families are Christians. It's kind of an odd question, but yeah, it's the Bible. We're
Yeah, I'm
members of
just trying
the
to
Life
flesh
Church
it out.
down
Yeah.
the road. Yeah,
Yeah, because just trying to
I'm
make
a
sure that
baptized Lutheran.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to poke into your religion or anything per se, just trying to figure out what specific text or moral guide we're referring to. Okay, so where do our individual rights come from? Is the next question.
Our individual rights come from God. You know, that's the foundation of who we are, the principles of this country.
Cool. Next one says, does the government have the authority to take away our individual rights?
They do not. And well, I think we all know in this room what's going on right now. The infringement of that.
The next question is, what is the role of government?
The role of government is to ensure the security of the people that they're governing, nothing more.
Okay, next question is, what training have you had to properly understand the United States Constitution? Looking specifically for training beyond law school. Law school is part of your training.
I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and I have a master's degree in international relations. And like I said, I've spent 20 years in the intelligence career field, which are I mean, almost every function is governed by some sort of law or regulation, and to include the Constitution. I mean, it's the most fundamental document in our government, so everything fringes from that. But you know, 20 years of a professional in the intelligence field, higher education, and where I come from in Kansas, they teach the Constitution still in high school.
Cool. Which actually brings me to my next question. It's the question actually refers to a number of different documents, and the overall question for all of them is, have you read these primary source documents from our nation's founding and our state? The first question is, have you read the U.S. Constitution?
You mean this
Well,
right
you
here
have a
on my
copy.
desk?
Very cool. Yes, you have a
Yes.
copy, but for the sake of the record, yes or no, have you read that?
I have not at a legal level analyzed the US Constitution, but I have read every amendment. It's part of just general education process.
Cool. Have you read the U.S. Declaration of Independence?
Of course.
Have you read the Florida Constitution?
That's a good question. No, I have not.
Have you read Common Sense by Thomas Paine?
I'm sorry, ask that one last one.
Have you read Common Sense by Thomas Paine?
I have not.
Have you read the original Federalist Papers?
I have. I read
Have you
that
read
one
the
in the 20s.
Oh, cool. Have you read the original Anti-Federalist Papers?
Perhaps I'm familiar, but I don't know that well, I know I've never peeled them apart and read them, but I have read elements of it through schooling.
Have you read the 1100 Charter of Liberties?
I have not.
The Magna Carta?
Yes.
The Petition of Rights of 1628?
I have not.
The Grand Remonstrance?
I have not.
The Bill of Rights of 1689?
No, I have not.
And just so you know, there's a few of these on this list that I certainly haven't read yet either.
Oh, I know.
Chrisanne is a
I don't
pretty
think many people have
challenging.
read all of these.
Yeah,
This sounds
Chrisanne's
like
a pretty challenging list maker for
I
sure.
feel like I'm back in school. I'm getting a list of books I need to go read.
Yeah, I know. That's actually one of the benefits of her survey. I'm actually probably going to go and read these now that I know that there's a list like this out here that I probably should have read according to her. In your opinion, what is the most important clause in the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights? So you can start with what's the most important clause in the Declaration of Independence?
I don't know that there's any one over the other, but I think right now the most important is our right to bear arms, because there's a real threat that we're all seeing nationally. And that I think is the single biggest thing that is keeping us safe or relatively safe in this moment.
Safe from foreign invasion or safe from our government?
Well, our government's job, like I referenced earlier, is to provide security for the people, and they're failing at that. And whether it's the quote government that we need protected from, or the people that are participating in whatever this is, be it the illegal immigrants or whomever, there is quite clearly a threat. And this right, this uninfringible right that we have, is probably the only reason that we are able to stiff arm some of the bigger problems that are likely looming on our very, on the very short horizon. So I believe strongly in that, although that has, I mean, the obvious answer for me to be the right to vote, and then peel it apart and the different amendments for the different as that right has been expanded to the people, and I stand by it. The most important aspect of your most important right is to have your vote counted accurately, and to that is exactly why we're running, or I'm running, is because how many people have been disenfranchised from one of their most fundamental rights provided by our Constitution.
Cool. Yeah, so then I'm going to say that that was the answer for the most important clause for the U.S. Constitution for the Bill of Rights. Do you have a favorite part of the Declaration of Independence?
All of it. I mean, the entirety of the process is what gives us this way of life, and quite literally the entire system, or the entire documentation, or the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all of it. They're fundamental for who we are in our society, and I think that's being lost because they are, whoever they is, right? Our opposition have done everything they can to target all of those rights, and fundamentally, I think we need to protect every single one of them, because that look quite literally is who we are as a country. So I mean, it's hard for me to say,
Yeah, it's hard, honestly, when you don't have it like right up in front of you and stuff to really be able to pick out a clause and stuff. The next question is, many believe the U.S. Constitution is a living, breathing document. What is your view and why?
I agree to a certain extent. I mean, I don't want to get into a philosophical thing now, because I do feel like we're back in university. But it is a living document, and it is meant to be amended at the will of the people, and we've displayed that as a society and as a country. So, but with anything, too much can be bad, right? And I think there is in this scenario, there is a bit of too much can be bad for the country, because at some point it'll just implode.
The next question is, what will be your primary duty and obligation to the U.S. and Florida constitutions and the people who hire you?
All right, my primary duty will be to ensure the security and the integrity of the electoral process here in Hillsborough County. That's governed by state law, and my part will be ensure that we are following the state laws, that there is no vulnerabilities, or at least that we're identifying the vulnerabilities in the process and securing them, and then making sure that election results are made available timely and accurately, and then most importantly, ensuring that we maintain the integrity of the process, because without this voting or this electoral process, we quite literally do not have a society. It is the backbone of everything we're doing. So my responsibility, I view it as the most important responsibility in this government process. The SOEs in particular should be objective administrators. There should be, no partisan behavior. And politically, I intend to do that, and for both sides, because again, it's absolutely necessary that everyone trusts that there is security and integrity in the process. If not, we do not have a country.
The next question is name and describe 3 primary principles from the U.S. Constitution that will guide you as our representative.
Well, I mean, the easy one is your right to vote for whomever you are. I think the Constitution is clear about who gets to vote. So I am a staunch advocate of voter ID and ensuring that Americans are voting for American leaders. I think that's probably the most important element right now.
Cool. Now I'm going to ask, I'm skipping a few questions on the survey because they seem to be more legislatively based.
Right, and if you notice, I'm trying to keep them focused in on on the SOE related.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that too because I'm going to try to do that too. So I'm skipping a few questions because they seem to be based on legislation. But this one maybe would apply to yours. It says, do the counties have the authority to limit the state and federal governments to their constitutional boundaries?
If you're a sheriff, you do. That's a good question. It's one that I've pondered myself to some degree. What are the capabilities or the rights of the local elected officials in the face of what may or may not be legitimate regulations or laws? I think there will be an opportunity to explore how I deal with that going forward in the future, but it's hard to say right now because I don't have the intimacy of the position in terms of what's going on behind the scenes to answer that in a way that's definitive.
Cool. The next question is, in your opinion, what are 2 current examples of the most egregious federal, state, or local overreach to constitutional powers, and what is your proposed remedy to each?
Okay, I'm going to keep that tailored to what I'm running for, which is again supervisors of election. So internally, just to make sure I understand the question, you want 2 issues within the state that I think are ask the question one more time if you don't mind.
2 current examples of the most egregious federal, state, or local overreach to constitutional powers, and what is your proposed remedy to each?
Okay. The voting process. The state mandates that we have to use electronic voting electronic systems. It's in the law, and that's further the Secretary of State interprets what he or she thinks the law is, and then dictates that down or passes down the guidance to the 67 SOEs in the county and in the state. And personally, I feel that the SOEs who are also, well, in the state of Florida, the Secretary of State is not elected and seemingly unaccountable, right? Because he's not an elected official. He's appointed by the governor. Whereas the SOEs are actually elected. And in some cases, they require more votes. Like in my case, I require more votes than 11 governorships. And I required 3 times the votes for any of the congressional candidates in the area. So one would think that these SOEs who are empowered by their locals would have some ability to implement procedures that are presumably approved by their people that have voted for them and not interpreted by a Secretary of State who was appointed and has no accountability to those decisions that he's made, at least to the people. I think that is an egregious error or issue in our state. And the SOEs need to be given some flexibility. And right now there were some bills being pressed that we're going to change the rules or the verbiage in the law that say that you shall use these electronic systems to SOEs may use these systems. And it's then and there we'll see SOEs like me who will explore other options, because anything you can do to increase the security and the integrity of the process, every SOE and every government element in the country should be doing that. And the fact that they're not is concerning. So that is probably the most egregious thing, not only in my opinion, but obviously the opinion of millions of people across this country. I'm sorry, I got off on a tirade.
No, that's okay. Cool. So then that actually pretty much wraps up the I guess, the reinterpretation of Chrysan's survey for your position, and hopefully we'll come up with like a survey that's specifically tailored for your position as well. So that'll be just a little bit better. Everything will be more tailored for that. And this is kind of the beginnings of that. So the next person we, interview for this position can thank you for that. So we have like a few questions beyond that survey that people that were just part of our group came up with and wanted you to address. And then after that, anyone who's a participant in the chat can go ahead and ask open questions. So that's pretty much the phases that we're going to have for the next. So then the first question is, how can you make the voting process more transparent?
That's a great question. I just want to say the fact that it's not more transparent now is just absolutely shameful. I am still trying to grasp my hand around the step-by-step process so that I can analyze where I can, as an SOE, make it more transparent for the public, because that is my number one priority. Well, number one, securing it. The number two is the transparency. And I've proposed as a start, without even knowing the process, or having a PhD level of the process, if you will, I have proposed immediately to start hosting community or SOE town halls to begin engagement with the people, because then at that point you can identify what they feel are the issues, where you can target your energy in terms of reassuring the public that these elections are in fact secure, and then it'll give me an opportunity to provide the public updates on what we're doing to secure the election, the things that we have found, the vulnerabilities that we've identified, and the solutions that we've provided. So town halls are a no-brainer. On election day, I think that there should be, I would love to see the entire process broadcasted online. I mean, it may be a pipe dream, but there's no reason in today's day and age where, with the bandwidth that we have and the security that we have, that we cannot broadcast the entire voting process. Every voting station has a camera. Anybody can go online and pull up the voting location. You can't see obviously how they're voting, but you can monitor the polling station and see for yourself. That way, every citizen effectively becomes a poll watcher, right? And quite frankly, accountability is synonymous with public accountability, because I feel that's the most effective path of accountability is through the public. So as an SOE, you should be making everything known. And the fact that many people submit public records requests, or they want to know analytics to the machines that are being used, or the data that's being provided, or that SOE offices are coming up with that is not supported by anything. Those kinds of questions need to be answered and provided to the public, because the public is well informed. They're not stupid. And when you treat them like that, I mean, you just destroy your credibility and you destroy the credibility of the process. And I don't like to say, I mean this, as a veteran and witnessing firsthand the sacrifices that many of my colleagues and many people before me have made, be it with their lives or the loss of a limb or just the fractured families, all those sacrifices made for people's right to vote. Anyone that's not going out of the way to secure that and make that transparent and ensure that we have the best process should be ashamed of what they're doing and question what they're doing in that process. But that is truly why I'm involved in this, because those are the people that made our way of life, gave us our way of life. And what they've done to our election process is just inexcusable. So the short answer is we'll do anything and everything we possibly can to bring transparency back to our elections. And quite frankly, I hope we set the standard for the nation here in Hillsborough County.
Very cool. The next question is, what do you think about counting paper ballots instead of using voting machines like Dominion?
I love it. I think if we get an opportunity to go do paper ballot counts, we're going to do it. I've seen it. I've now sat through 3 demonstrations, two of the same, but like there's multiple ways to conduct ballot counting, hand ballot counting. It can be done. It's done in 11 counties in the country. It's done in 7 countries in the world. Many countries outlaw electronic voting because of the obvious security concerns. And those that do the hand counting do not have, and the data is there to support that. I don't have it in front of me, but they have like a 99% confidence rate in those results because they're almost, well, especially if you watch the displays on how they're done, it's almost impossible to fudge the numbers. So I would like to think that someday we can go to a one-day voting, hand counting, in-person voting, but it may not be feasible, but still there is feasibility with generally hand counting ballots. I've seen it done. And I want to note, just gee whiz, because a lot of people say, well, those countries that do the hand counting or the counties that do the hand counting are not as populated as some of these other locations. It's irrelevant because the manpower used to count the ballots is based on the population. So it's a percentage. So if it's 2% in country X, it's 2% in the United States. So it's not a manpower issue. There's really truly no excuse to why we could not be doing it.
Very cool. And then the next question is, what do you think about using programs like ProctorU to confirm the identities of all voters, both those in person and those who are, say, like across the ocean?
It's a great question. I'm not intimately familiar with ProctorU. I don't know if that's something that is used in the universities. And I don't.
Yeah, I can explain it actually, because that will give you a little bit of a better idea.
Okay.
If you're taking an exam, in order to prove that you are who you are, what you have to do is you have to have a picture taken of your face, and then you have to have a picture taken of your ID, and it's usually a photo ID, like a voter ID, where you have to take the picture. And in so doing, it confirms both that you are personally present yourself and also that you are who you say you are by ID.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm for anything and everything that enhances security and voter ID. And if are there databases or systems available, and then those need to be analyzed and used, especially if they increase security. But at the core, the answer is there needs to be voter ID, and it needs to be secure, and it needs to be a valid voter ID. I'll just give you an example with signature verification. It's kind of odd. Candidates have to go through a petition process to get on the ballot, and there's a signature verification of the petitions that they provide. And the criticality given to those signatures oftentimes seems to be more than what a voter has to go through to provide, ID to vote. And I think that is a double standard that the system's set up to not only keep people out of running or discourage them from running, but it also skewers our results, as we know, on the back end when we're actually voting. So, voter ID and voter security in general is a very, very serious issue, and it needs a lot of attention, and we intend to give it the attention that it needs.
Cool. I'm gonna do a little plug also for like the whole ProctorU. I really like what you were saying actually about maybe streaming the whole thing. And then the thing about the ProctorU is that if you were doing an absentee vote, then you can't just give in a paper ballot. You also still have to prove that you are who you are and that you were present and that your face matches with your ID. So like somebody who is across the ocean who is mailing in like a vote by mail and stuff, they would have another way to confirm their identity that they would have to provide. So cool. So that actually finishes up the questions that we come up with ahead of time. And so now the floor is open for those who were in attendance to ask a question. Do we have any questions on the floor?
We've left
Okay,
them speechless.
That's not a bad thing, actually, because that usually means that you must have answered those questions during the whole process here. Yeah, so thank you very much for answering all of the questions here. It's been a pleasure getting to know your point of view a little bit more. If you want to do any closing statements or comments, now would be the time to do it, and then we will discuss and hopefully get back to you very soon about endorsement.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you for having us. It's exciting. We're new to this. So every day is a new adventure for us, and we're loving it. But at the core of what we're doing is our principle of restoring security and integrity in our voting process, because I, again, truly in my heart and soul believe that this is the most fundamental process that we have, and the amount of people that have sacrificed, it's just, I take it as a personal insult when our elections are skewed, and they're doing it blatantly now. And it's going to take good American people to step away from what they're doing, which is precisely what I'm doing. And I want that to be noted. After my government career, I started a real estate business, and we're doing well, but I can't, I have children. I have a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old. I cannot continue on being selfish, knowing that these things are happening, and that I have an opportunity to help, especially in this scenario where my wife was one of the 58,000 people who had their data stolen from our SOE's office, and they still haven't answered to that. And just as an aside, he also took 2.9, our current SOE took $2.9 million from Mark Zuckerberg in the last election cycle. So when I say there are some like red alarms going off, there are some major red alarms going off in the Hillsborough County SOE office, and somebody's got to go address the emergency. And that's what we're doing. We're going to fix it. We're going to set the standard, and hopefully the rest of the country will look to us as how to conduct elections, because it's at the core of everything that's going on in the country right now. And I've been saying this for the last month. My election, the Hillsborough County Supervisor of Election, will be in Hillsborough County the most anticipated and heated election outside of the presidential election because of what it represents. We are the tip of the spear in getting our country back. It starts with our election processes, and it starts with the SOEs across the country. And again, they haven't seen an SOE like me yet. And when we get elected in a few months, everybody's going to realize it. So I'll leave you with that. And thank you again for having us.
All right, thank you so much.